Awesome. Right here, well, so to answer your question here, where you're saying the hardest part tells us where kids will likely struggle, this helps us anticipate where they make mistakes. You're kind of saying the same thing, right? Anticipating where they make mistakes and knowing where they're likely struggle, that means the same thing. So, right, the hard part tells us where students will likely struggle. This helps us to know where to go fast and where to go slow in a lesson. It also helps us add examples, illustrations, justifications to really hone in on that hardest part, right? The non-exemplar kind of helps us figure out the hardest part, right? So if we can't just name the hardest part, when we start to do non-exemplars, they help us figure out the hardest part, if that makes sense. So over here, yeah, I love this. Once we know where students might struggle, we have to plan to preemptively address these areas. But like being specific about this, like I'm not changing your PowerPoint. Okay, I'm going to delete this. But like ways to preemptively address these areas could be, for example, like slow down and make a big deal. Just say like, this is the most important thing I'm going to say. Right? Or like make a song to remember the hardest part, or like share an analogy, right? Or illustration or story or something really memorable. And sometimes it just means like adding to the lesson to clarify. So I'll show you an example in the thing. So here, right, you have this exemplar. I love this. You're talking about, what you really want to see here, right? Like in the criteria for success, we really want to see kids understanding what the equal sign means. But one of the things I notice here is that the way that this is written, just in language, isn't really carried through in the lesson. So now I'm going to go back to the lesson. Sorry, this was the lesson. And I would have teachers do this. If I'm looking back through this module, like where in the module, where in this discussion do I want to make sure I stop and write it a certain way, right? So there's all this conversation happening, right? And here they have the teachers, it says, write 3 equals 2 plus 1. Knowing what the exit ticket looks like, right? I probably also need to write it in words, right? I probably need them to also type here 3 is the same as 2 and 1, so that they see it that way. And I would probably here say, we don't say 3 equals 3 and then whatever comes doesn't matter, right? We look at everything on this side of the equal sign and everything on this side of the equal sign. So you can see how, I think what I'm trying to say is like, now that you've looked at this exemplar, the hardest part for kids is that even if we understand that equal sign means the same as, it's easy to kind of stop and say 3 is the same as 3. But we have to look at everything on the other side of that equal sign and do that work before we go ahead and think about the is the same as part. And there's this language barrier. And so when I go here, I'm going to try to emphasize that and bring that into my lesson. And the bringing it back to the lesson and what teachers are going to teach is really the key. Whew, I talked for longer there, but I hope that's helpful. Obviously, feel free to call me or text me if you want to talk about something else.